Well, alright, just in case you're wondering if, yeah, okay, it kept it. Phew, okay. I accidentally hit the wrong button and stopped the stream. Good morning. Oh, man, love the music. Yes, the link to the playlist is always there in the, in the description of what we're going to be talking about today. So, what are we up to? Live with the Shaman. Glad you could make it. Good morning, good morning. Good afternoon to some of you who are watching in other countries. Good evening to some. And good day to those of you that are watching the pre recorded broadcast of Live with the Shaman. Our topic today, we're going to be talking about the different colors that the GCS uses, the Grove of the Celtic Shaman uses with our robes. They actually mean something within the variance of our training, and it has a lot to do with what we go through with our training, what we get involved in, the things we're allowed to do within our tradition, and what have you. So some of it may seem a little foreign if some of you are in other traditions. Some who follow the Native American shaman path will probably have absolutely no clue what I'm talking about. However, one of the things that I have noticed is shamans of all paths, whether it's Siberian, Native American, shaman, Celtic, what have you, we each go through our different trials within our different variables of training, if you will. And it's in that training where we learn not how to be shaman, but what it is to be shaman. Just because when you say um, all shamans are healers of one kind or another, not all healers are shaman. And, you'll hear me say that a million times. It's just like all witches are pagan, contrary to some beliefs, but not all pagans are witches. All Wiccans are pagan, but not all pagans are Wiccan. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to get off on that tangent. So in the training of the GCS, we use different color robes. We start with the white robe. We actually start, to be honest with you, we start with no robe. That's right, no robe, no garb, plain street clothes. And this is worn by seekers, by those who come to Grove meetings, come to Grove functions, circles, what have you. And they may be seeking, they may just be wanting to learn more about what the GCS is. Brothers and sisters of the Grove, people that we have known for years, that have interacted, given us some really good ideas, and have been teachers and students and trainers within of themselves, if you will. Those do not wear robes. The only people that wear a particular color robe during a particular petition of their training are those who are oathed to the GCS. And we take that oath very seriously. Now, what does it take to become a oathed member of the GCS? That is between you and your teacher, to be honest. The only people that are actual listed oathed members of the GCS are those who have made it to the priesthood and have taken the oath to stay with the tradition and teach under the tradition of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. So even though you may be a dedicated first year under your teacher, if they are training you under the tradition of the GCS, then that's just it. They are training you under that tradition. You're a part of the Open GCS. You're a part of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman with Circle and what have you. As a first year, you are required to wear a white robe. Not a rainbow robe, not a multicolor robe, not a black, white, and red robe, not a red, white, and blue robe, but a solid white robe. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a first year senior student? Well, the white robe indicates the purity of learning, the facilitating of understanding. You're attempting to go through the clarity of light. Any magical cast or any circles or anything that you cast up, they will never be anything but of the light. You're learning to follow the path of the light. You deal with things like anger, doubt. You deal with anxieties, different variables of depression through the white robe training. You'll deal with life itself. You'll learn how to understand that it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to use that anger to lash out at others and to do other things to other people. So the training of the white robe, the first year, what we just simply call the first year or the senior student, during that period of your training to the priesthood, well, it is daunting to say the least. The council that you oath to are generally the council under that of your teachers. Like, for example, all of my students during their first year, they are oathed to follow the teachings and the guidance of my council while they're working on building and facilitating their own council. The training of the white robe is never meant to be easy. It's not hard by design, but it is hard by design, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It didn't to me when I first started, and fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I didn't have a human teacher. Every human around me was my teacher. Everything that I dealt with, trees, Mother Nature, the earth herself, human beings, human nature, anxieties, anger, fear, all of the negative emotions that you could imagine of a human being were my teacher during my first year's oath to the Grove of the Celtic Shaman tradition. That white robe was a very important time in my life simply because I was able to learn more about me. I was able to learn more about who and what I was and where I was going. Now, it's not always absolute chaos and crazy ass test in the first year or first 2 years or first however long it takes you to be a first year. And that's another thing people need to understand coming over to the GCS. Just because the tradition says generally within your first year you can test out to the priesthood. Seldom, and I say this in all honesty, seldom does a first year ever make senior students within the first 6 months. Seldom does a first year stroke senior student ever make it to the priesthood within the first year. We are not going to rush your training. If your training takes a year, great, more power to you. If your training takes 2 years, a year and a half, 2.5 years, 3 years to be a first year, that's between you and your teacher, your training, your counsel, your spirit guides. There's a lot that goes in to dedicating a student to the white robe. Confused yet? Good. Confusion is good. Confusion gives way to, hopefully, the seeking of education. I've had people tell me that they come in, they're in for 3, 4, 5 months. You're not teaching me anything. That's because you're not learning. You're too busy talking instead of listening. You're too busy trying to do instead of trying to learn. The white robe is designed to hopefully, by your oath, keep you from making life-changing decisions that will seriously adversely affect you and those around you. I am a firm believer in the shaman tradition. It's not sink or swim. It's learn how to swim and then get tossed into the brink, if you will, and see if what you learn helps you swim. If it doesn't, we'll help you out, help you dry off, and start over. And we'll start over as many times as we need to start over until eventually you get it. And I'll give you another tip. The harder you push for that black robe, the harder you push for that priesthood, well, guess what? But get this. The white robe will carry you not only through your first year, but through your priesthood as well. There's only 3 color robes, right? The white robe is actually the robe of the priest. However, we keep our students, our first years, in the white robe so that they get used to the training. I apologize, my sinuses have lost their mind this morning. So, if you think you're going to go to the black robe as a priest, no. Your black robe doesn't come until the high priest. And yes, when we make the changes to the tradition, all of this will be explained in the new tradition. This is not something new in the GCS. We've just really actually started implementing the conversation so that seekers have a better understanding of what the colors of the robe means. So, that being said, onward and upward. The white robe carries you from your first dedication from a first year through the senior studentry, through the priesthood, into the high priest. So what happens to the black robe? Well, the black robe is the understanding of the high priest. That which you will learn to walk and understand the dark times. You'll learn to understand the darkness around you. You'll learn to take your training of the light to calm the training of the dark. This is where you will get deeper into the understanding of the anger that many shamans carry with them. And most of the anger is caused by environmental stupidity. Shamans tend to not handle environmental stupidity very well. And we handle societal stupidity even worse. So the black robe training of the high priest, well, therein lies your main trials, your tribulations, your higher learning, your higher astral training, Astral training begins at your first dedication, but your higher training of the masters, forming your own council, is done. By the time you reach the black robe, by the time you reach the high priest, your teacher will have already worked with you to conform, to acknowledge, accept, and build your own council. Now, are they named? My high council is named. Each of the each of the five elements and each of the four cardinal points have a name according to the deity that I associate them with. The Council of Nine is simple. If you'll notice in the triadogram, the Council of Nine is very simple. Of course, we have the cardinal points, right? North, east, south, and west, right? Then we have the elements. We have spirit, earth, air, fire, water, right? Those are the elements. And then we have the triad. The triad is the great spirit, God and goddess. All of this is taught within the GCS. That's kind of what makes us the Grove of the Celtic Shaman within our own tradition, is because of our deity structure. Is it for you? Don't know. Will you be taught this throughout your understanding or throughout your oath of your white robe? Yes. The white robe and the black robe are kind of intermingled, right? We're going to teach you the stages of the light through your white robe, through your first year, through your priesthood. When you reach your priesthood, here comes the confusing part. When you reach your priesthood, you're still in your white robe. We require you, if you're going to remain an actual oath member of the GCS, to remain in that white robe. When you take your priest oath, you will be asked one very simple question. Do you wish to oath as a priest or a priestess within the Grove of the Celtic Shaman, required to teach under our way and required to teach specifically under our tradition? Do you wish to maintain a teacher? Now here's where it gets a little confusing. When you step over to the priesthood, you're required by oath to maintain your white robe. You're required by oath, if you stay in the tradition, to teach of the tradition. You will bring in students. You will bring in students in spite of yourself. I have had people during their white robe training tell me, I will never have a student. I don't do students. I don't want students. I don't want to teach. I just want to learn. Well, guess what? Council will send you students to test your teaching abilities, to test your abilities to be a teacher, to be a good teacher. Becoming a good teacher takes time. Some people, they automatically have it. They just seem to get what's going on as far as being a teacher. Some have to learn. All of this is done within that white robe training. I noticed a while ago I got off into the black robe a little bit. That's because during your priesthood, during your white robe training as a priest or priestess, and I use the term priest with no sexual connotation, right? So as you're going through your training as a priest, you're going to be hit with multiple other questions. Will you be training as a minister? Will you be training as a pagan minister, learning the laws of your state to be a minister, learning the laws of your country? Different countries have different laws and regulations to be a minister than America does, than Texas does. Um, the GCS is based in Texas. We follow Texas ministry laws, And if you are out of state or out of government and you're a remotely taught student, which is a royal pain to do, then you will be required to learn the laws of your state to teach you how to be a pagan minister. We will teach you that in the GCS, but the decision is yours whether or not you choose to be a minister. And all of these decisions are made. Some people decide they don't want to be a minister during their priest training, that they want to wait to the high priest training when they're a little more stable and comfortable in what they're doing. And I get a lot of people through the white robe training that once they reach the priesthood, right, they take the oath as a priest, they take a little bit of a break, they breathe for a little bit, and they go, okay, I'm ready, let's do this. So the priesthood training starts, and it does get a little easier in some sorts, but you're still under the white robe training. You're still learning to deal with the follower, the practitioner of the light. That doesn't mean white fluffy magic. It means a follower and a practitioner of the light. Confused yet? Good. So, let's assume you've made it through your variable training as a white robe priest. You made it through the first year. Good on you. You made it through the senior student. That's a stretch. You made it to the priest oath, and you've done all of the tests required by your teacher to make it to the priest oath. You sit down either by phone, video chat, hopefully, in person, even better. We prefer to teach in person. It's a lot easier for us and for you, but there are some times we can't. So we sit down over the priest oath in the tradition. We make sure that you have a copy. We, of course, have a copy. And we read through it together. Do you have any questions? Are you sure this is what you want to do? And as a student, you're never allowed to petition your teacher to go to the next rank. You're not allowed to petition your teacher, am I a senior student yet? You're not allowed to petition your teacher, am I a priest yet? Because this tells us that you are more interested in grading classes than you are actually learning, which you should be learning within the Grove of the Celtic Shaman as a student to begin with. Alright, so we move into, and let's assume, or presume, I hate the word assume, but let's assume you made the decision to make the oath of the priesthood, and let's presume that you've made the following choices. You may need to go back and rewind and replay some of this, and that's perfectly fine. But let's say you decided to move to the priesthood and you made the following choices. You decided to carry your priesthood under the oath of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. Let's say you decided to take on the training of the pagan ministry, right? And let's say that you've decided, and you have this choice, right? You decided to keep your ongoing teacher during your priesthood. We recommend it, but we don't demand it. You can, if you're crazy enough, flip over to council for training during your priesthood. At that point, all elevated members of the GCS become essentially your teacher as well as the council. However, if you screw up, that's your bad. That's between you and your council because you oath to council as your teacher. A lot of decisions to make in the priesthood of the white robe. White robe carries a lot of weight. But let's presume that you made it through your priesthood training. It's not always going to take a year. It's not going to take less than a year, I can assure you. We usually oath to a minimum of a year and a day with priesthood training. Most of the time, you may go a year and a half or 2 years in your priesthood training. It all depends on where you're at. I have had very few students make it through the priesthood training within the 1 year minimum. I've had a couple. Very rare. Right? That's the white robe. The white robe carries you from your first year dedication all the way through up to your high priest dedication. Any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or PM me if you want. If you're watching our pre-recorded broadcast on Facebook, post your comments. I will get them. May take a day or two, but I do get them. Some of you may be thinking, holy shit, all of that's in the white robe. What's left in the black robe? Well, the black robe. The black robe is the dedication of the high priest. By this time, oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Allergies, gotta love them. So, the black robe. When your teacher looks at you and says, you have met all the criteria for high priesthood, here are the choices you are required to answer at the crossing of the high priest. Now listen to these very closely, please. 1. Will you remain an oathed member of the GCS following the GCS tradition? Yes or no? 2. Will you take the oath of a pagan minister if you decided to go through your ministry training as a priest? If you did not, do you wish to go through your ministry training as a high priest? Yes or no? Then the next question, do you wish to keep your existing teacher or change teachers within the GCS or move to council for training? Now what this means is, as a dedicating high priest, you can choose to keep your existing teacher. You can choose to dedicate, if you chose council through your priesthood, you can choose to dedicate out of council into a human teacher, either your prior teacher, whoever you have now you consider as a mentor because you oath to counsel as a teacher, or you can change teachers within the GCS and go to another teacher. This is the black robe oath. However, one of the other questions that you will be required to face in the black robe dedication is you will be required to stand before your peers and answer hardcore questions from your peers. If you are a remote student, your dedication will be announced in the open GCS. and you will be required to answer questions of your peers posted on the Facebook site. Now, essentially, what this really means for you is you have choices. We want our students in the Grove of the Celtic Shaman to have choices. So, presumably enough, let's presume you chose yes to the following questions. Will you continue as an oath member of the GCS during the training of your high priesthood? Yes. Will you continue your ministry training as a high priest to continue to learn more about the pagan ministry? Yes. Will you keep your existing teacher that you have now through the high priest training of the GCS? Yes. Do you accept the responsibilities, the education, the requirements, and the training required by the high priest of the GCS? Yes. Then we will step back if we're at an open fire and we will say, in accordance to the bylaws of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman, we submit this first year high priest to the pagan community and the community at large for questions. That gets rather uncomfortable because in a pagan circle, we may have non-pagan people, and they may ask you questions like, what is it to be a member of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman? They may ask you, what is it to be a shaman? They may ask you, what is shamanism? What is paganism? What is a pagan minister? They will ask you questions that are required to put you on the spot because that's what society will do. The one question that they will ask you that you shouldn't have an answer to, what is it to be a high priest within the Grove of the Celtic Shaman? In which case your answer can simply be, I don't know yet. I'm not there yet. I will be a first year dedicate to the high priest. I can tell you what the tradition says my responsibilities are. I can tell you what the tradition says that I should be learning. But I can't tell you what it is to be a high priest yet. The black robe training will cover how to deal with not just your life expectancies, how to deal not just with your dark times, and dark times meaning anger, doubt, fear, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of busting your ass and never getting a pat on the back, or doing things that you do simply because it is who you are and never getting recognition. These are human traits that are highly dangerous. They're very fallible and very volatile. You will deal through your darkness training, which is the black robe. You will spend a whole lot of your time walking around in the dark. You will wish somebody had turned on the effing lights so that you can see where the hell you're going. The purpose for that is to teach you to deal with this light right here on your third eye. That, if you let it, is always lit. You can see the way through your third eye if you allow yourself to do so. The training of the black robe, you will deal with extremely important life decisions on a whim. Counsel will allow you to be put in different karmic situations. And here's where during your black robe training that you're going to deal with a lot of your karma that you may have had coming to you from your first year, your priesthood, and in many cases through your black robe training, you will also deal with karma that you may have had coming to you from earlier on prior to your dedication. You will also see areas within past lifetimes where you may have to deal with karma for that. That's between you and your counsel and your spirit guides. I'm not telling you that everybody has to deal with that. Now, I will tell you this in all honesty. I have lost some really, really good, powerful members that made it to the high priest training. We have lost them to the darkness. We lost them to the anger. We lost them to the fear. They de-dedicated. They denounced their dedication and put themselves in a situation where they spent a very long time lost. We do everything we can to help you through these periods of time of the black robe. It's not easy. I went through mine for many years. Your dedication of the black robe is your longest dedication. The gray robe is a master. You have to have 10 years altogether dedicated. And this goes back, it'll backdate to your dedication as a first year. So if you went by calendar and you went from first year to senior student in 6 months, and you went from senior student to priest in 6 months, making your year and a day, right, as a first year. Then you went through your priest training through the year and a day, right? You made your priest, your senior priest, and you're up to the end of your priesthood in your 1 year training. That's 2 years. Then you make it to the black robe. It seems almost ludicrous that you could make it to a high priest within 3 years. I've only seen one or two do it. I wasn't one of them. However, to meet the gray robe, to meet the master, this is something that and the high priesthood, both of these dedications, you will probably look at your teacher and ask them if they have lost their effing mind. I don't want it. I'm not ready for it. I'm not going to do it. In which case the teacher will look at you and say, okay, fine. I'm not going to make you do it. However, if you don't do it, you will be stuck in mud from now on until you decide to catch the rest of the oath. So your black robe is never just a year. Your black robe will carry you as a high priest all the way up to your 10 year. Your master is only GCS trained for 10 years. Now, get this, and this is the one question that absolutely drives me crazy. I may have a student that's been around for years They went through the white robe, took them 2, 3 years. They went through the black robe, took them 3, 4, 5 years. They're only in the black robe for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they think they want to be a master. Um, no, no, not going to happen. You're not going to make master 6 months or a couple of years after you made high priest. Not going to happen. We look at the 10 year as a minimum for the master. And then once again, once you've reached the master within the grove, you're faced with the following questions again. Will you remain an oathed member of the GCS required to follow the bylaws of a master within the GCS? Yes or no? But if yes, will you step out of having a teacher, or will you continue to carry your teacher through your master? Yes or no? I can tell you both of the masters under me at this point have kept me as teacher. I have a high priestess under me right now who has kept me as teacher. I have a first year working on her priesthood. She made senior studentry without a problem. Well, she might argue that with you, but she's working on her priesthood. Maybe a little bit away. Don't know. But she'll have those choices. Once you reach master, if you decide to stay within the oath of the GCS, then we expect you to carry yourself accordingly. Now here's a caveat that many either don't or won't understand. Once you reach master in the public, you will not introduce yourself as a master shaman. We don't allow it. If you're going to remain oath to the GCS, you will not introduce yourself to the public as a master shaman. You will introduce yourself as a shaman. And if they say, are you a member of a grove? At that point you can say, yes, I am a master of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. I am not the master, but I am one of the masters of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. If they want to know more, you can put it on yourself to explain it, or you can hand them a copy of the tradition. That is strictly up to you. But as a master shaman within the grove, the questions that are put to you by the pagan community and your shaman peers are going to be stupid. And get ready, because they're also going to be asking you some very minuscule level training questions to see if you remember where you come from. Do masters reread the tradition constantly? Absolutely. We're human. And to humble is one of the main lessons of the priesthood, the high priest, and the master. learning to be humble is one of the big, big training purposes of the white robe. Learning to dedicate, give of oneself, and learning to be continually humble is the black robe. Understanding that you are never above another is the black robe. Understanding that you are never better than another is the black robe. Hopefully, you've already got this by the time you reach the black robe. So, I noticed that we had quite a few people pop in and pop out. I don't know if Facebook is having connectivity issues or if people are just busy today. But for those of you that may be watching on the back end, that the indicator doesn't actually show you're actually watching, and that's fine. We like that. We're fine with that. I will be uploading, of course, this video to the YouTube archives and on our other archive channels. If you want to know what those are, please let me know, and I'll be glad to send you the links. If you're watching on YouTube, I remind you to click like or dislike and tell us why. Click subscribe and click the stupid bell so you'll get notified. We hope that this maybe helps you better understand what the robe colors mean and what the different variables mean within the training of the GCS. We hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening. Always thank you for being who you are. We'll see you next week right here on Live with the Shaman.